Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Nashville Mayor Megan Barry. This is after her second State of Metro address that was given earlier this week. Mayor Barry, we recently had a property reappraisal in Davidson County, and the numbers are a little eye-popping. We had a 37% average increase across the counties. Some parts of the county had increases in the 60, 70, even 90% level. Now they're going to roll the tax rate back so that the reappraisal in and of itself doesn't cause a tax increase. Right. But people that live in areas where there's been a lot of significant growth may still see their tax bills go up.
Right. So, you know, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Vivian Wilhoit and her team, who went out and assessed every property in Davidson County, kept everybody informed, and also Charlie Cardwell, who worked specifically with the populations of folks who might be able to freeze their taxes. We saw 2,000 folks who took advantage of that program. You know, at the end of the day, we can't make money off of a reappraisal. So even though you've seen those values increase, the tax rate's going to go down. In fact, that tax rate we predict after the state signs off is going to be the lowest in Metro government history in 54 years.
Some of those people who are going to have great increases in their reappraisal are elderly or on fixed incomes, and they have the opportunity to have their taxes, property taxes, frozen. But there are a lot of middle class and working class people that don't have that opportunity. Are you concerned about Nashville becoming a place that middle class and working class people, workforce people, cannot find a place to live? Well,
we definitely are focused on that. And the other component on this reappraisal is if you believe that your reappraisal does not reflect the actual value of your house, you have the opportunity to appeal. And we absolutely expect that people will appeal that, and they should if they don't feel that it's properly appraised. Now, I will tell you that when we think about housing, we think about this from a workforce housing perspective, and I'm very specific right now about talking about YIMBYism, yes in my backyard.
Rather than NIMBYism, absolutely, which is not in my backyard.
Exactly. So I need our Nashvillians to be about yes in my backyard, which means having mixed income development in their neighborhood so that folks who are teachers and police officers can afford to live. And one of the things that we've done in this budget is we have a $25 million general obligation bond fund that we're creating to help build more housing more quickly. Speaking of your budget, it's a record $2.2 billion budget with $19 million in new growth. Is about 4 or 5%, which is $119 million. $119 million, yes. which is one of the largest increases I can remember in new revenue in a given year, and mostly all coming from growth. Obviously, things are looking very good here in Nashville, but can it stay that way for much longer? And what are you doing to make sure that the city's prepared for years when the budget's not as good? Great question, Pat. I mean, I think that everything always ebbs and flows. I don't think our growth is going to continue, but at some point it is going to dip and come back up. So one of the things that we've done in this budget cycle is to allocate monies for our debt for next year. So we're actually using this budget to fund debt that we have this year, but also fund debt that we have for next year. We're trying to be fiscally responsible to make sure that we're taking good care of the taxpayers of Davidson County.
Another problem in the affordable housing area is the cost of land. A long-time housing advocate in town, Eddie Latimer, wrote a very interesting op-ed piece in the Tennessean. He says the real challenge in affordable housing in Nashville is certainly not the demand for it, it's that land, and we saw this in the reappraisal. When property values go up 37% across the county, it gets hard to find the land to build these new affordable housing facilities on there. What does your budget do to address that?
Well, so one of the things that we have been doing since we came into office is taking Metro surplus property. In fact, we had 64 pieces of property in the last go-round where we actually gave over to not-for-profit developers to build affordable housing through part of the Barnes Fund. So we're trying to take the land that Metro owns, and that $25 million that we've allocated as well through the bond fund will also help us go out and do that with Metro-owned property.
You also have a plan the council approved last year, but I don't think takes effect until June, that would also allow for incentives for developers if they want to develop affordable housing, but that's being sued in court right now by the Beacon Center. Well, they say it violates state law.
There's actually two different things going on. So we actually do have an incentive component for developers that it's voluntary. The Metro Council passed something that actually goes into effect in June that is not voluntary. It's actually a requirement that you put in affordable housing units if you're asking for something more in your development.
Do you have concerns that the bill the council passed may not pass muster in terms of the state law?
You know, what I try to focus on is how do I actually get more housing units built or retained. So that's where we're focused, and I'll let those folks fight it out in court, and we're going to continue to build housing.
Although the legal department will be defending that law in court.
We'll see where we go.
That was an interesting answer, and that wasn't a yes, but necessarily. You also have a number of situations where you and the state are at odds about bills and about laws. There was a bill passed in the legislature that basically negated a law both in Nashville and Memphis that would have lowered the penalties in some cases for possession of minor amounts of marijuana. Is this about a real sharp difference in public policy, or is this about red-blue politics?
I think that it's important to realize that there are a lot of places where we're trying to work with the state. I mean, passing the Improve Act with Governor Haslam and the Davidson County delegation, I think, was a win for Nashvillians. There are always going to be differences in policy. My hope is that actually the state will look at that particular piece of legislation and with a hard look and say, actually, we should have a better policy statewide, and think more proactively about Memphis and Nashville being leaders on this.
You mentioned the Improve Act that just passed and the other things you've been involved up in the legislature this year. I said that the passage of that was a partial victory for you. How involved were you in lobbying lawmakers to do that? I did notice that every member of the Davidson County delegation, and that's mostly Democrats, except for one person in the House, voted for it. Did you have something to do with bringing them on board?
Well, we definitely had lots of conversations, and ultimately they made their own decision about what was best for Davidson County and Nashvillians. But I'm so proud of them.
But you were nudging them a little bit.
I was so proud that they took that step.
Nashville Mayor Megan Barry is our guest on Inside Politics. Back to continue our conversation with her after these messages.